Before we start setting up a local environment, let's go back to that command line approach. I called it the REPL. Now, REPL stands for Read Eval Print Loop. The read part is basically the part where we enter something into the command line, like 2 plus 2. Evaluate or eval is the next phase where Python analyzes our command once we hit enter. Now, once it's done analyzing, it prints the result, 4 in this case. And the L part, the loop, is basically where it, goes back to start and waits for the next input. That is why we refer to that command line interface to the REPL. It is an interactive shell where we can just issue commands and let Python do the job. It's not really helpful for writing big Python programs, but it's a nice interactive way of working with Python and great for simple calculations and practicing. So let's go back to the REPL before we actually set up a real project with an IDE. Of course, we'll go back to the REPL to start working on our blockchain. And for that, let's leave out the node and transaction part and let's focus on the chain of blocks which contain data. Now that, of course, means we have two essential parts. We got the data and we got the chain. Now for the data in this module, we'll have a look at which types of data we can use in Python. Because no matter which Python program you're going to write, if it's a flight booking system, if it's your own search engine, or if it's a blockchain, you will work with data all the time. Data your user enters, data you read from some file, anything like that. And for data, we can basically work with numbers, strings, which is text, or booleans. And we'll have a closer look at what this is and what all these data types are in just a second. We also have more complex data structures at which we'll have a look at later in this course. Now, the chain in the end is just a list, a special type of data in Python, as you will learn. Now, let's go back to the basic data types, number, string, and boolean. Numbers are divided up in integers, which is basically a number without a decimal place, and floats, which is a number with a decimal place. And we have both negative and positive values for numbers. We obviously work with numbers a lot in most programs, be that your accounting software you're creating where users might enter their data, which typically would be numbers, or be that your blockchain where users send money around. Most programs work with some kind of numbers. We also got booleans though, and booleans are two kinds of values, true and false. Now, this might not look super useful if you're brand new to programming, but actually being able to tell if something is true or false is very useful if you're working with conditions, something we'll also dive in the course. Sometimes you want to check if something is true, if a certain condition is met, and then execute a certain part of your code, and execute a different part of your code if something is false. And therefore, booleans are a great way of handling that. But of course, again, we'll see how we use them in practice throughout this course. And strings are just text. Well, just like numbers, working with text is obviously something you do in pretty much any program. Again, be that your accounting software, where you enter the name of a certain transaction which is going on, or be that your blockchain, where you enter the sender and receiver of a transaction, which might have a unique name or something like that. Now, strings in Python can be written with single or double quotation marks, and you should simply pick either of the two approaches, whichever you prefer, and then stick to it. They are exactly the same. Now, finally, I already mentioned it, we got complex data types like dictionaries and objects. We'll not worry about them right now. We'll come back to that later in the course. Now, with that, let's see what exactly numbers are and how we can use them in a typical Python program.